This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi. This morning, let us explore how breath mindfulness, let's try this again. This morning, breath mindfulness exposed. You've been doing it wrong. Followed by group meditation. So we're going to begin with patriarchy's big old smelly lie. If you've come to several of my live streams, you know that I have an axe to grind about patriarchy. Patriarchy isn't as ancient as we were taught. Before there was patriarchy, there was matriarchy. Whoops, wrong button. Let's go over here. Come back with me to about 300,000 years ago, during the Paleolithic era. Anthropological evidence points to the notion that Paleolithic culture supported the individual being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. A heaven on earth, the archetype or the source of the myth of Eden, if you will. Jump forward about, give or take, 290,000 years to the Neolithic Revolution and the advent of proto-capitalism, where human values were turned on their head and society began teaching us to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Work hard for your exploiter so that someday you can exploit others. This type of rigidity and controlling tendencies lend themselves to the myth that what we're supposed to do is actively focus and actively analyze. For if it's to be, it's up to me, and you and I, we gotta make it happen. And that sounds great until you actually look at the neuroscience. Functional magnetic resonance imaging studies, fMRIs, demonstrate that when we overwork the dorsolateral and medial prefrontal cortex, we begin presenting with symptoms of depression, no less triggering our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression. So what happens when... So let me jump back for a second. So we've got proto-communism and proto-capitalism. There is an archetype for this found in Buddhist mythology. That is the tale of two cousins, Gautama and Devadatta. When we follow in the footsteps of foolish Devadatta, we wind up multiplying our sadness, our anxiety, and our aggression. That's not the only path available. You see, as you've probably already guessed, you probably can see where I'm going. Neither the amygdala nor the front of the brain constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. Consider, if you will, the spinal cord. We can think of it as having two bits, a center bit and peripheral bits. Together they're known as our autonomic nervous system. And when we take a relaxing break from our tendencies to actively compete against our own autonomic nervous system, and instead passively cooperate with it, amazing things happen. The anxiety and aggression of our amygdala is calmed. The empathy latent within our anterior cingulate gyrus is gently stimulated, non-neurotically stimulated. And we cannot help but experience greater peace. So it's basically the opposite of the tyranny of our amygdala. When we read the Christian Bible, when we read the second epistle of John, we hear or we read that perfect love drives out fear. We learn that there is an antithetical relationship, a teeter-totter relationship, a toggle switch relationship between love and fear. When we concentrate on our breath, and then when our mind wanders, pull it back to our breath, we are exhausting the front of our brain, and we are triggering our amygdala, and that is going to make us anxious and cranky. What happens, ladies and gentlemen, when we simply treat our breath the way a piano student treats a metronome? A piano student is not concentrated on a metronome. Sorry about that, tripod. They are focusing on their posture and their hands and the keyboard and the sheet music, and they are aware of the metronome peripherally. So focused concentration versus peripheral awareness. Ophthalmology teaches us that we don't just have one type of cell in our retina. We have rods and cones. And when we shift from foveal vision to peripheral vision, it affects our neurology. Similarly, how we treat the metronome, how we treat our breath, affects our entire central nervous system. If we focus on it, we're going to be anxious and cranky. If we're simply aware of it peripherally, of something going on in the background, we give ourselves the opportunity for something much, much more. So let's take a deeper dive. So we've talked about the need to shift gears, and that's all well and fine, but we need to know how to do it. I could sing to you the praises of going to Disneyland, but unless I give you a map, or a destination for you, an address for you to plug into your Navigator app, you're not going to get there. So let me give you the lowdown on the hoedown. We'll begin with mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord. It could be described as the hub of our sympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way. The hub of our sympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics of perception. Seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. All of them, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. How's about a rule of thumb? Every time we silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, as we feel air enter our nostrils, that is the essence of mindfulness. This leaves us with a question. All that stuff that we noticed, the interesting, the boring, the glorious, the grotesque, what do we do with it? That leads us to meditation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the tippy top and the very bottom of that same spinal cord. These peripheral regions working as a team could be described as the hub of our parasympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release during our exhalation to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eyes, could feel non-graspable to the hand. The rule of thumb is as follows. The key to meditation is to silently and mentally recite the verb rest every time we feel air exit our nostrils. And so we're using breath purely as a metronome. Why are we using these words? Not to coerce our autonomic nervous system to do our bidding. Au contraire, it's already noticing and relaxing. We're playing with these words to guide our own intention, to guide our own expectation, to help us to fulfill the ultimate purpose of meditation, which is to simply cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, the key to our return to Eden, to key to help us refrain from being like grumpy Mace Windu and instead being like groovy Qui-Gon Jinn, who was so spiritual he could take a break in the middle of a life or death circumstance to meditate. That's pretty awesome. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, together as a team, let us sit and breathe and notice and rest. The most efficient way for us to gently invite our subtle energies to coalesce at the crown of our head is for us to touch the tip of our left index finger to the lowest knuckle of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. Remember, the moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques supporting meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. So I am used to using the live stream function on the desktop. I've also started using it on the smartphone, which means I'm a little bit in the dark about how to read, what's it called? Text, not text, chat, the live stream chat on the smartphone. So if you know how, let me know. Okay, so it's 36 minutes after the hour, and we began at approximately 6:20. So that would be, so it's 37 minutes now, so we were going to say that's about 17 minutes have elapsed. So 55 take away 10 is 45. 45 take away 5 is 40. 40 take away 2 is 38 minutes. 38 minutes divided by 2 would be 15 plus 4, that's 19. So for the first 19 or so minutes, let's work with this gesture and this practice of this and rest. Did I mention I check for questions about every 6 minutes or so? maybe if I push this button, I can see the chat. Top messages, community moderation, automatic chat translation. That sounds great. I guess it's right here. Okay, we'll see what happens. Listen to your body. You don't want to cultivate arthritis. You feel pain, discomfort in your joints. Gently adjust your posture. So if you're watching this, please send me a test message in the chat window. Maybe just say good morning or something, or tell me your favorite Star Wars movie, um, just so I can see, make sure that I can see the chats on the peripheral device. Remember, the liberation offered to us is not liberation from the presence of dread or desire or delusion. It's merely liberation from their tyranny. They're still there, but they no longer control our choices or our utterances or our deeds, because the more we cooperate with our autonomic nervous system, as we breathe in and as we breathe out, as we notice and as we relax, the more those same choices and utterances and deeds flow from love's deeply centered spontaneity. All enlightenment is getting so good at the Buddha's Eightfold Path that we practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Perhaps that is why the Buddha explained that one could master this path in as little as 7 days. Remember, the Buddha's path is egalitarian. It's not for special people in a special time in a special place who've somehow learned a special handshake. It's for everyone. So I'm going to adjust my spine. You may wish to too. Let's lean forward and back and left and right. Let's do a gentle twist, and encourage our spine to find its equilibrium. And now let us shift gears. The most efficient way for us to gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce at our chest is for us to rest the tip of our left middle finger upon the lowest knuckle of our right middle finger, palms up in our lap. Again, allow me to remind you, the most efficient way to practice mindfulness is for us to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this every time we feel our chest swell with breath. Similarly, the most efficient way for us to practice meditation is for us to silently and mentally recite the verb rest every time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. What is enlightenment of the heart? The more we practice mindfulness and meditation, perhaps once every 12 hours or so, the more we cannot help but practice kindness of intention, communication, conduct, and even commerce. Doing so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, doing so spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively is the key to the Buddha's path. Let's take a moment to borrow a phrase from the Christian New Testament. In the Synoptic Gospels, we read of the peril of burying one's talents. Those who are creative are often chided by the minions of late-stage capitalism that they must bury their talents and straighten up and fly right in the name of self-discipline. And that is one of the many ways in which late-stage capitalism punishes and stymies and interferes with creativity, whether it be artistic creativity or scientific creativity. It interferes with it. It undermines it. Capitalism doesn't encourage innovation. It purchases it and then monopolizes it and then stymies it. This we see is an effect of patriarchy. And patriarchy can be found wherever there are humans. In the workplace, it can be found vocationally, recreationally, interpersonally, even romantically. And so the difference between patriarchy and matriarchy is not the shape of our genitalia, but the disposition of our heart. And the easiest key that unlocks the prison cell of patriarchy and frees us to the vast expanse of matriarchy is simply our cooperation with our own autonomic nervous system. In approximately 10 and 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening recitation and practice of meditation, meditating like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.